What a wonderful thing. I literally had the page open and I closed it. Why? No idea. Anyways, at least we're here, so that's something. Man, today it is Thursday. Wow, another wonderful day to be alive, I guess, I don't know. Please. Anyway, today it's going to be complicated. I don't really have not nothing. I wish I had nothing to say. It will be on one hand, it will be such a wonderful thing to have nothing to say. Silence would be something great. So it's to come here and say absolutely nothing would be fantastic. In many cases, that's useful. It doesn't happen, but that's useful. Silence is a little bit more needed. And yeah, we literally get to enjoy having that sort of stuff. So that's certainly something. Not that it really matters. That's just what it is to some degree, but it's not the most important thing, anyways. Today, why are we here? Main question: why are we here? Also, I should have changed. What does it say? Give me a second. I didn't change. I just realize I did not change the title. Not the thing above my head. It isn't a title, it is more like a description, tiny sort of self-contained description. It is. So it works. Okay, now then going back today, I was just here because I had been thinking. I don't really have something particular to say. I had a lot of work to do, and I didn't truly get to read anything new, but not. Yeah, I think that has been pretty much part of life. There has been almost no day in which I have learned nothing. In some cases, something funny that does happen is getting to re experience and finally understand any idea because I gave myself enough time to properly get what the idea itself was about. So, in those cases, it's very enjoyable. But every other time, it's just sitting around and learning stuff. So, yeah, today it isn't that I didn't learn anything new, sadly. Yeah, stuff has been processed, I guess, but I don't know. It's just the process of being alive, I will say. Okay. I did have something particular in mind. The complicated thing is properly bringing it up because it requires a level of recognition that in most cases it is complicated to handle, or at least I guess in my case that's something funny. I remember talking about oh okay particular thing I mentioned like 1 or 2 days ago, something that happens with what most philosophers write at least in the post-modernity, is just a justification and a later on evolution and invitation to see the world from their glasses, to see the things that they try to talk about from their perspective, so to speak. And all of that is not really bad. I wouldn't say it is negative. I I just mentioned that as a very important note, I guess. I mean, the sad thing is to ignore that in many cases that's what's happening. To see somebody writing so many wonderful things and ignore the reality of how it's just them citing what they experience, what they feel. I remember, for example, one of the most interesting descriptions that I heard about this guy I have been reading, Emil Cioran. It's very funny to get the opportunity to see in that sense when they give in the introduction to any book quick rundowns on who the author is, those briefings, so to speak, those basically that introductions or translator or note. Who are you going to read? Even if I already should know that, there are some extra bits of information. Most of his work is published or is written when he is in those sleepy states, in those moments in which he is having less consciousness than anything else, because he's just fighting off himself and his own insomnia. Why do we care about that? Why are we trying to use that in a description here? Because it serves to see how so many things that he talks about seem to have that open-endedness, even if they are certainly related to anything, they have that open-endedness that allows it for multiple interpretations and what's not, and also give it that sense of how everything is in a certain way very much twisted, let's say it like that. Not because it's truly is twisted in a negative manner, but just because the way in which the idea itself was conceived was a complicated one. And all of that stuff happens with most of the authors. I I don't find myself seeing just that happen on the basic level of, oh yeah, the author mentions that in in a very rude way, and that's it. They dispose of the responsibility. I remember even more. I I had the possibility of talking with one of my teachers, and he did mention something about that. Even a wonderful thing that happens is the author is standing from their own position, and they are describing, even if it doesn't happen that they themselves are experiencing something, because in some cases you don't really see the author suffering from the condition that they are describing. Somebody like Nietzsche is arguably a different case, but somebody like Schopenhauer seems not to be such a pessimistic person. He's more of a contrarian to what pessimism tries to be about. The way in which pessimism is brought to life is as a negative influence on reality and that sort of stuff. And what he tries to do is to bring some sort of cure to the world, to assist the people who has to suffer through all of that. And it's certainly something wonderful to to see it from that perspective because you can frame it better. The act of getting to read other people and getting to understand what they are talking about gives a lot more time to process why we do the things that we do in the ways in which only stuff of that sort can allow it. Let's say those social sciences are useful in that way in particular because they let the authors have a lot of space to explain things and to express ideas and develop their whole playfields and whatnot. And it's always interesting to do it, to try and read other people once you can understand that. But at the same time, it's that's what I was trying to mention. It's complicated to have that realization. There is always a sort of subjectivity always hidden within everything that happens. It's complicated to realize that, and at the same time, how much of that happens even on what we do? How much are we being subjected to our own self in what we are trying to accomplish? It should be an obvious statement to some degree that yeah, I am not being moved by everyone else in the world. I am doing what I feel like doing because I just find it to be an interesting activity, and I find it something that might result in positive conclusions at the end of the day, or once I consider that I have finished my work. So I move myself around certain expectations and schemes and such that I might not actively be communicating to anyone else, but at least they keep me hopeful in what I am doing. That's that's something that I sort of fail to always talk about. I bring it up as it happens, okay. Is it something bad? Not really. I mean, people get to do what they want because of that. It's a wonderful gift to be capable of aiming towards what we say that we truly care about without having as much of an issue in regards to other things, without having to be confronted by so many troubles. But I think at that point, I am not really speaking for most people. I wish it was that easy. I What I truly wanted to talk about today was I always find something good when I read someone else that I am not capable of properly doing here, and that is having that proper level of what I seem to care so much about honesty, that proper level of acceptance that yeah, I need to say stuff, I need to bring stuff that allows me to, if nothing else, mention what I have found and what I have experienced. It's even if to to a point it feels like it's just the connotations of what my life feels unavoidably. If there are no life experiences that can allow us to conclude anything, it will be pretty much impossible to get anywhere. You don't get to it's a sort of obvious statement in that sense. You don't get to learn about anything if you don't experience it yourself. If you don't have it in your mind, you cannot understand something out of the blue. We don't get to develop meanings and understandings and connections about reality in ways that no other creature can, just because we have the thinking faculty. No, it always needs to be fueled by something else, by, let's say, an extra bit of deepness that, if nothing else, is contained inside of us and that is allowed to be expressed through those experiences that we get to have. But before going more rounds and rounds about the same thing, just going back, going back. Yeah, I think this is pretty much that. I cannot really say I find it complex to stand here and say anything. It's always just a complicated action because in many ways how much the things that I try to say, that one tries to say, are properly being presented, not just in a way of wow, yeah, it's impossible to understand me because I'm talking in very advanced terms. I remember, for example, something I, I I kept trying to remember it. The word that I was looking for was symbolic capital. This teacher was talking about, or this professor was talking about the symbolic capital that we are lacking to understand some stuff about the world and how certain concepts work and what's not. And I don't know. I just think it's impossible to just accuse the other person who tries to understand things of lacking something and not even trying to give them anything at all, just because you might not be prepared. It seems like a pointless activity. I, I always, it's something that I always bring up here. I always like believing that words can lead to proper results, to the correct type of result in life, because action allows, or wise action, measured action, things that we want to do, what we feel like accomplishing, all of that stuff can lead to good conclusions, not because it is just born out of the interest of doing anything, but rather because we get to mobilize ourselves towards what seems at all to be the point of doing anything. And in many ways, that's what's missing there. If we are interested in accomplishing anything, we will find ways to accomplish that. No matter how much it takes, let's say, we can always plant seeds to that will later on sprout into proper efforts and whatnot. We can always keep trying. It's so there is a word I don't know how to say it exactly. It is something along the lines of the defeatist, or basically just uh, another way to say negative or negativist, basically of how much we like to not see stuff as something good or something correct. We are just interested in moving forward and nothing else. It's I don't know. I I I talk about so many things, and in the end, it always is complicated to get to the final conclusions. There is always something that I I think about. How much am I talking about that I truly want to mention? How many things am I doing that I would be feeling comfortable with doing for eternity to a certain degree, or inside of the mental playfield of eternity, that I am willing to keep doing. Therefore, how many of those things I should be trying to change and whatnot? And there is always this degree of realization of yeah, we are here talking about so many stuff, so much stuff and whatnot, and there is always something lacking. There is a piece lacking in all of this puzzle, let's say. I might not be actually completely honest with the stuff that happens and whatnot. I I just try to sort of make things work, but that doesn't really mean anything. If at the same time pretty much nothing, it's impossible to reach any conclusion if there is always an empty space that might be filled by something else. Trying to cover also every single possible interpretation is certainly not just difficult but outright wrong. Trying to control every single outcome is nothing more than overthinking. That, to some degree, I always like to defend overthinking and defend sort of what we used to traditionally call, let's say, negative patterns or behaviors. Try to show that there might be some positive ways to see them and to fit them in our lives. But there are also other cases in which, yeah, sadly, there is no place for overthinking. Living a life in which every single thing has been overthought is only painful. And it's not such an enjoyment to say, yeah, you know what? We need to not have the possibility of living life because we're worried about what might happen when we get to live it ourselves. And it's always hard to part with that feeling, part ways is with that feeling of yeah, there are some things that I am not properly going on about. There are some other things that might have been left unaddressed and once not, and I don't know. It's always it's always a little bit complex to see it because it has that's what I have been trying to mean with all of this. This is pretty much my own experience. I certainly I get to enjoy being here. I get to enjoy talking about this stuff. I get to enjoy all of that whole adventure. It is a pleasurable thing, but at the same time, it's besides this, there is not much else. There are always other potentially wonderful things to experience out there, but it's always this sort of trap of thinking about the world that seems to be so necessary to some degree because the world lacks thinking. Sadly, it's not something that I think anybody who tries to think for themselves can evade as a conclusion. The world does not find joy in thinking lately, or not really just lately, since a long time. And in, in addition to that, anyone else who might be interested in accomplishing anything themselves might find out that yeah, and here we are. We instead of just thinking properly about this stuff, we had to spend 1,000 days mentioning all the possible issues that might exist. There is how much are we going to keep talking about the same stuff? I remember it has already started to happen. For example, I said it myself. In many ways, we are a sort of entrapped in loops of existence. We cannot avoid repeating some patterns, not in very conscious ways, but rather, yeah, we are always attracted to the same sort of people. We are always attracting the same type of persons to our lives. We're always having iterations of the same problems in our daily lives. We are always finding issues of similar nature and whatnot. And all of that isn't exactly negative. It's just what we have at those times, much else. At every other instance, we have those moments of, I don't know, nothingness. We pretty much enjoy it. Not really that we enjoy it, but we have those moments in which nothing really happens, and it's just sad to see it in that way. How we could be living so much better lives, yet here we are, still doing the same stuff, still interrupting the same sort of system. And I don't think all of that is something that we deserve to do, something that we want to do, that we must believe is the only thing we get to have. This amount of conformity that we all experience is so impressive also. It's there I for example that was something that I was exactly thinking about. I don't really like when some people consciously avoid mentioning some stuff, but at the same time, here we are. I do not talk about how, in many ways, what I bring up is not really all that positive or all that uh, well-being oriented, let's say, and more changer in terms of correct and only uplifting directions. Most of the stuff that is mentioned here is related to issues, realizations about issues and ways that we might have to try and solve them. Nothing else. But it always begins with the issue, not with the solution. And certainly, I have not properly articulated almost anything, if anything at all, that starts with the solution, then the explanation of what the problem is. But yeah, that's something that consciously happens here. To not get to talk about how incredibly sad so many of the things that this whole thing becomes, that this whole experience revolves around. Are it's I think I always talked about it. I have made so many allusions to it that it should sort of be obvious. No, really, this is about bad mental states and whatnot. How funny it is to hear somebody say, "Yeah, I don't really wanna experience my life anymore in the way that it is, or with the things that I have around myself right now." Not because I truly do not want to keep living, but because I want things to be better, and I cannot really figure out any way in which it can be made better. It's disappointing to see that. It's how much we have interiorized interiorized in our lives this whole negative way of seeing things. How much we are not interested in changing directions and doing better and anything of that sort. It's always the same stuff. It's that's something that I, for example, also haven't had been trying to accept. All of this, sadly, it's just I want to make something good. I want to make something that anybody can see and find useful if they are finding any sort of similarity to what their life was. But at the same time, I do not want the clinical part of that. Having to see the same struggle so many times. How many times do you have to move the same thing? It's that sort of Albert Camus uh, sort of comparison in which how many times will Sisyphus move the rock up just to see it fall down again? How many times one has to keep on doing things and things all over again? How many times do we have to bring up the same issues? How many times everything needs to be mentioned time and time again? How much, how many years will it pass before finally some action gets taken into any direction, if at all? How much till never ending life? Yeah, yeah. There are always things to talk about. There are always things to say. There are always things that are necessary to try and mention. How many times is that going to happen before I finally take any sort of fucking action itself that has any sort of effect in reality? Not in my mental reality, in reality itself, you know? It's always all of that. It's always I don't know. People likes to call it negativity. I don't know, man. Am I being honest with myself? Am I realizing what my issues are? Am I trying to change them? That's what I always berate against. Yeah, awareness to some degree isn't really a solution. That's what's so annoying about hearing something about this whole idea of how friction works. You might, in Zangian terms, you can trigger somebody's shadow by saying something that goes completely against their customs. You can bring to them a concept that they might not be ready to deal with the moment in which they see it. So they will push back and there will be no interest in solving the issue. Now it becomes a problem of individuation in which you realize that you are not who you truly think you are and you're not really moving in the direction that you think that you're moving because you don't have the capacity nor the interest nor the true motivations to do it nor blah blah man. That's always the same thing. Are we really getting any understanding about this stuff? I always look around at all of those things. We have so many issues, but they don't have no explanation. This sort of ridicule way of thinking about reality, in which out of nowhere everything else is the problem, is so fantastic. The way in which we like to not spend even a single second of our life thinking about why things are the way they are right now. It should be obvious enough, man. We get to keep living. Everything. Tomorrow we wake up. Everything that we used to know is different. Most people we have no way of continuing their lives up to that point. It's not a thing out just oh yeah. We need to have change and we need to have it right now. It's so disappointing all of that ways of thinking about things. All of those, unavoidably, we cannot say that they are the incorrect ones. We always need to have the open possibility of getting shown that we are wrong. Not that it certainly is an egotistical claim to say, yeah, we possess the truth and nothing else. We only have in our hands the truth and the correct view about the stuff. Sadly, no, we don't. It's life would be so much easier. Life would be so much incredibly easier if everything that we had in our hands was the truth. But anyways, that's what happens. We don't get to change the whole world out of nowhere. It all takes time, and it all takes just proper action. It will be wonderful to just confront everything, but confrontation is not the proper approach, neither. It's that connection with things, that patience that needs to be had to make any change effective, that sort of interest in making things better, in actually making things better, what makes anything itself better, then that's what's sort of lacking so much and what's in so many ways not present at all. I don't know. It shouldn't be that crazy to say, yeah, and we can try to pursue that more. We can try to have it exist more. I, I just think not that we are doing a lot of work and nothing else, that we are doing not enough. Just not enough. And always, it's it's always all of that. It's trying to see it from a perspective in which it doesn't feel as negative, because negativity itself is not allowed. It's not something that we have gained as a possibility. It's always the least desired thing to be had in any sort of consideration. If the conclusion were to be negative, we might even say that we have reached the wrong conclusion. It's very depressing, I would say. So many things are bad in the world. So many things are so incredibly wrong. And trying to just mention them means that we don't get to deal with the reality because they are bad. So we are talking about bad things. We can only focus on what is right and what is already been solved and nothing else. This need to just look forward to what seems to be already resolved. This human spirit not expressed as a possibility, but as a closed unity that needs to follow the path that everyone else has already set up for it, implying even that we have the capacity to do that for every single person. The lack of interest in exploring, I am so I see it in so many ways how that happens. It's so worrying. Not just worrying, it's so incredibly stupid to talk about that. I hate how we don't really get to be living better lives by treating people as if they were incapable of acting and taking every single decision for them. We only get to have more problems in the future. It's wonderful how we are incapable so many times of helping ourselves because we just need this sort of meaningless gratification and not it will be even so much better to just say the instantaneous uh, temporary and more present focused gratification that post modernity likes to talk about, but no, and this other sort of gratification, the one from the other people, don't have to deal with anything else. We have already created a path for everyone to follow. So life has been solved so far. No, man. It would be so wonderful if it was like that. Sadly, we are still here. We're still talking about this stuff. It should be a big enough proof to say, yeah, we haven't gotten that far. We have not accomplished what we set ourselves out to get. We we have chances. That's the best thing. We have many chances to do what we want, but this is not something that we are actually trying to capitalize on. We might just be doing our work, and that's it. That should be it, nothing else. But there are so many sensibilities hurt, there are so many things lost in the way. I I even see it start. I have already seen so many ways in which failure is even being accepted as such a fundamental part of life. Failure should be not to say that, oh yeah, we need to live terrified of failing, but there is a way in which we have constant fuck ups around us, in which we have so incredibly unresolvable errors that could have been avoided, but we do not like to talk about being responsible beings. We do not like to talk about doing what could be useful. We do not feel like it is necessary to consider that, yeah, when there are issues that could be solved, we might as well feel the need. We might as well try to do our best to solve them before they become even bigger issues. No, no. You know what? Now we have getting rid of what is the discussion about bad things and what might be at all related to anything negative is only seen as a glorification to depressive thoughts and whatever. I don't know, man. It's I always see it as, oh yeah, we are all fucking stupid. So nobody gets to think about the issues of the world. Nobody needs to worry themselves with what needs to get resolved. There are so many things that we have still so much work to do on things, yet here we are. It's better to act like nothing happens. It's always the same thing with that. It is still, oh yeah, the human spirit is so incapable of accomplishing anything. It's better to just avoid at all what might look like an issue, because dealing with the realization that it exists ensures now that we are going to get ourselves destroyed. You cannot see problems. You can only see things that can be easily solvable by the system that have already been presented to you and nothing else. You cannot be a person who has the free will to examine the world. And even if in some days it might feel overwhelming, I realize that, yeah, we can still survive it and try to do something to properly make things better. It's it's this generalized discussion about how, oh yeah, we are suffering mental health crisis. We are suffering one of the worst times, the lowest points in history in which we have no positive thoughts and no good ideas and no great thinkers, and we are dwindling. The human spirit is losing the battle. It I don't think that it isn't, okay? I cannot say that it isn't. What are we doing to actually make it work, man? What is the place that we are taking for all of this? What are we doing? What's the interest in the other person? This I love it so much how fragile is the ego in so many ways, in which now we cannot even properly communicate with one another. We cannot have any interest in doing those things. It all becomes excuses, it all becomes just ways to avoid doing and to avoid taking action and to avoid committing to anything. It's the total lack of possibilities, not because there are no possibilities, but because possibilities are bad themselves, and even more, trying to bet on anything is negative. We have reduced all the world that exists to just the most basic, soulless type of living. And we want to complain about it being wrong. Unavoidable, is fucking garbage. That's so much it, man. No, to the world is something is there that I don't know. Is the world can change. This idea about how the world will transition into different eras no matter what we do. What if we have the possibility of also making things better, man? Why not dream? Why not believe? At least, for example, that there are situations that are bad. What about properly seeing them, pointing them out, and trying to do something? If nothing else, at least leaving other people with the awareness of that. That comfort to sit with something so horrible in our lives. It doesn't happen, man. I do not. There is no day in which I don't look in the mirror and I say, wow, all of the mistakes that I committed in my life, they weighed 0% in my mind. I have no regret whatsoever. No way that fucking happens, man. That's the experience of everybody. There are things that we all wish we were capable of doing. And at the very least, by being capable of seeing in the present what we can change, what we are still in time to try and change, we have chances at doing stuff, at living life, at getting somewhere, at accomplishing something. I would say that's those are the common words that I use. Those are the filler words that it is fulfilling or useful. Whatever the fuck that means. They are just things that allow life in a less annoying way, solving the issues that we can see. That's the whole plan, the whole basic explanation. Getting rid of what is solvable. No, I don't know. It's just a lack of proper commitment, I guess. I wish it was just awareness. I always like to blame awareness when it comes to that from a personal perspective. Oh, yeah, if we properly understood why things are the way they are, we would be capable of changing. Is it truly as simple as that? In some ways, it's not that we cannot rationally think why we need to change. It just takes so much time. It just takes so much sacrifice. It's life is not such a beautiful garden in which every single day we get to plant all the seeds, and tomorrow we wake up and all the sprouts have already appeared about all the things that we think about, and we can pluck the weeds of the bad things that grow in them whenever anything bad appears. No, man, all the connections that we make, all the roots that get cemented into ourselves about negative stuff, it's almost impossible to uproot a whole tree of bad things because we have accustomed ourselves to those things. We have engraved into our reality those stuff, and it's not completely avoidable. Life is not just avoidance about things. Some people that's the thing. Some people know exactly what went wrong, how they might be capable of fixing their lives, yet they still can't do that. It's not about, oh yeah, there is no proper awareness. Is it? Is there truly no awareness? I can say we can sit 1,000 days here discussing everything. That's something that I was thinking. People of this sort, people like me, what thinkers, you might call them philosophers, they don't deserve that fucking title. Any thinker of the world might be capable of arguing the ideal issue. Okay, what about trying to help an actual person with those problems? Does that get easy? Is that as easy as saying, oh yeah, yeah, you know what? You have to wake up every single day. You have to do your best. You have to clean your room. You know how hard it is. You know how complex it gets to accomplish anything some days. You get to see how difficult life is. Some people, do you get to see that mentally? It's all the playfield of yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything will be better. Everything that we talk about is such a simple thing. Tomorrow, I have given you this tiny note. Tomorrow, everything will be solved. The We have explained depression now. No more depression because we have destroyed. What is it? Get owned depression. You have lost the mind battle. No, man, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all, man. It's such a disconnection with reality in some cases. How much lack of action there is. Proper action. And that's just the experience that anybody can have. That's just life. Sadly, that's how we work. If we were truly capable of having as much compassion as we say that we need to have for other people, we wouldn't be in these places. We wouldn't have these many issues, let's say. The present will be so much better. Yeah, yeah. The difference doesn't mean that it is going to be better. No, man. You have to recognize some days we are failing and we're not doing our best and we're not getting that far away. We are fucking failing, man. And not it's not a responsibility of just one person. That's the thing. Every single one, every single person to some degree fails on that. And oh yeah, that's the wonderful critique of all of this, or the wonderful final note of this. Does this mean that the person talking is exempt from that? Fucking no, man. It would be wonderful if everything that I said didn't apply to me. You know what a good feeling it would be to not have anything to do with the issues mentioned here at at hand now, wishful thinking can only get you so far. But if you don't have the capacity to recognize even in yourself the issues that you experience, what are we doing? Where are we trying to do that with the things that we say? Who are we trying to lie to? Who whose time are we wasting? And for which reason? You know? So yeah, it's not that, oh yeah, the rest of the world fails. No. Every single one of us fails. It takes time. We are so willing to give it. We are so incredibly willing to some days properly care out the stuff. One day things might get better. One day we might be capable of properly moving things into the right direction. But right now, it isn't one of those days. Right now, it's just another tiny stone into the abyss of the society that does not care at all. And I do not know. I try to continue saying that. What I was trying to say before. I try to be honest. I don't really like to be honest. I don't really find it in me the capacity to be honest. To some degree. I fear, for example, mentioning anything that I haven't thought about that much. Those already shaped ideas, those already properly presented things, that's incredibly easy to do. There is no actual work going on. But what about all the failures? What about all the incorrect conclusions that get omitted? People also need to have a realization about those things. Something that fails in so many instances is, oh wow, yeah, people might have a different image of me compared to my own self-image, to my own perception of myself. Who's at fault here? Me for fucking lying at them every single time that I can? Not being capable of presenting myself as honestly as I see myself? Or them for literally only experiencing what I let them? And not feeling the need at all to try and see what is beyond the mask that I offer them, that tries to please them the most, them for not pushing themselves beyond the level of comfort that I am trying to always shower them with. Huh? Who might be at the wrong here? Them or me? What a difficult question it is, huh? But yeah, it's always a lot of that, I guess. People, nothing truly. That's something that I always talk about. Nothing truly deserves anything, but people, if they can, they should at least get honesty. No, there is no need to rob others out of the proper honesty that we have. And yeah, in some cases, people misidentifies honesty as fucking meanness. That's the funny thing, how much we like to not even give it a second. Yeah, yeah. This person is being truly honest because they lack filters. No, man. You lack proper fucking morals. Nobody told you that because nobody wants to deal with you. That's the funny thing about this current model of what honesty is, but proper honesty is also care, is also interest, and also has that level of tact about itself, because you realize why, to some degree, honesty is useful. Even if it hurts in some cases, it isn't a force only there to destroy stuff. That's not the point of being honest. But yeah, continuing. Anyhow, that's the thing is that's in so many ways we're just still there. We could have gone so much further away, but we're still there, not much more. The human could do such a wonderful work if they care about this stuff, but proper care is rare to find nowadays. I mean, we can only care about this stuff in many cases only after it is already late to do anything. This constant need to be reminded about how we failed and how we have already done wrong things to try and properly take action. Such a wonderful thing because it shows that many people already had possibilities to do stuff, but we did not care in time. Situations could have been made so much better beforehand, before they got to a bad point, to an irredeemable point in time. Yet here we are, nothing else besides that. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? And why should any one of us care if we are not here to worry about anything that does not pertain to just us? Why should we try to spend our time thinking about those things, you know? It's so much better to see it that way. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I will say that's most of it. Most of what I had in mind so far. I mean, today, yeah, I can accept I am not there. Mentally speaking, I am not there. It has been a day of intense thinking, and I do not really have that many good conclusions today. Some days it's hard to not get angry at stuff. I mean, there are so many things that we still do so incredibly wrong. It's wonderful to see how little we have moved into any direction whatsoever. But we still like we don't, yeah. We talk about how it seems to be an accepted emotion, not really. Proper anger is not accepted anyways. Childish anger is at least understood as just that. Some form of childish play more than anything else. Wish the goal is attention and nothing else. The goal is a moment of eyes on me and nothing else. No, I do not care. I don't care about that one. There are things that we can try to solve. There are things that we can try to do properly, yet here we are. We later on we like so much. That's sort of on what I mentioned before. We like to later on act. That's in that sense it's true. We like to act like, oh yeah, there is no way in which we can explain why bad things happen to us. Yes, there is, man. Do you not want to recognize that we have already fucked up before? Is it that hard to just look behind and see? Yeah, there were many possibilities to do things better, many ways in which we could have made things go in the right direction. Did we try to actually make it happen? No, certainly not. But at the very least, we have the conscious claim of being responsible, since we do not allow ourselves to think about that. We do not need to allow ourselves to think about that. Not in this current system, at least. But yeah, I don't know. Anger is also a very tiresome thing. I cannot really lie in that front. It's probably one of the most tiresome emotions that I can experience. So it doesn't really feel that tiring because you get that sensation of how being happy allows you to keep going and makes you even more filled with determination as what was it Undertale will say. Well, the same thing but in reverse happens here. Something that I kept something that I was thinking about today. Suddenly spite and negative emotions can only get you so far. It's such a fucking sad thing to see so many people give up when they say that they are being moved on by spite. You realize, yes, certainly, I shouldn't trust on that as my driving force or my motivating factor or anything like that. That's not what allows me to keep going. But that shouldn't be what allows me to keep going. At least it's that's the wonderful pointless thing. They see so many losses around us because we like to make it look like somehow bad emotions are going to be useful. Certainly not. Regret can only fuel much more regret before it leaves you empty. That is, I guess, if anything else, that's why we get to say that happiness is it's the counter to any bad thing. Because you really can't have a point in which you say, okay, I have everything. You can ideally say that, in reality, it doesn't happen. You don't get to say, I have every single thing that I have wanted. The desires are infinite in nature. But yeah, I don't know. I just talk too much sometimes, I guess. This one would have been easier to say, oh yeah, uh, I am tired. Maybe today we're going to just decide that being here is maybe not the best option. But we're not the best sets of character anyway, so who cares? That's I guess it for today. I don't know. More or less stuff and whatnot. What a wonderful thing. Always. It shouldn't be such a weight in the mind, but it actually is. Not being tormented by oneself is pretty much impossible when you actually see what might be the issues in life. So yeah, just have to keep on thinking. I guess at some point that's the promise. Not that it doesn't happen, but that's the promise for anybody who doesn't give up. Things get better. Things always get better. That's I guess that's the issue. That's the true issue. Being capable of committing to exploring anything enough to find out if it does get better or just deciding to stick with that feeling of, oh yeah. Today I will give up here and today I will decide to abandon what I have done and nothing else because I feel overwhelmed already. You know, it's better to say all of that. What I said before, it's better to just believe that spite gets you somewhere, that anger allows you to resolve stuff, that destroying things makes you better, that childish anger is the solution to problems in life. That's better than to try and make things work. Because reducing the other to just a negative thing much easier than to see the humanity in them. Being conscious about how every single one of us has their issues, has their problems, has their things to deal with, has all of the stuff that we all must try to at the least observe is harder than at all accepting that yeah. Or not accepting, just continuing with the previous way of yeah. I can just react with negativity and that's it. I can just keep doing what is wrong and that's it. That's the sort of conclusion that takes time, so we might as well escape from all of this and there will be nothing else to worry about. There will be no other goal to try and get to after this one if we say that it's time to give up today. And such is life in that sense, to give up in as many instances as it is possible, basically. That's I guess that's one of the few things that we do not properly cover, how much yeah today that this tiny failure might as well lead into a pile of other failures. That point in which the mistake was still correctable, in which action did not seem to be necessary, so we might as well do nothing about what needs to be done. After all, if there were to arise an even worse problem, it isn't a problem for us, or at least not for us right now. It might be a problem for the us of 5 years into the future, 5 months into the future, one day into the future. All of that is better. But who knows, man? Just the world actually needs some fixing. And we still have time to do it. It will be pointless to sit here and say, yeah, yeah, that's it. It's it's in a bad state. It's time to burn everything down and move on into a new society. No, man. There are so many in that same sense. That's part of the realization, I guess. How wonderful it is to try and talk about how people seem to need out of those things that are related to, oh wow, we we have problems and getting rid of them is hard. No one knows. There are so many people are waiting for any glimpse of hope to try and deal with what is already wrong with our life. In many cases, I mean, even in the personal life of every guy, there are some situations that if there was a proper glimmer of resolution, we would instantly take action. That's the universal reality of how the moment in which we get the certainty that we could be capable of solving something, we try to solve it. It's don't. It's an amazing thing, man. Many people are living that very same state with such complicated issues already that we can discard everyone else in the process unavoidably. We can also discard ourselves, but that's too much of a simple show. That's too much of a reductionist show. There are still things that need patience, things that need time to be properly put into place. So, who knows? One day, one day the ego of the person will be as big, and we will get to live a better life, I guess. But yeah, no, I don't know. I guess now for real, I don't have anything else to say. I also have started earlier. Yeah, I wasn't also exactly there to do it, so whatever. Now the whole drama of having to go and turn off this thing. Wow, what a piece of work, anyways. But yeah, one day, one day we will get to work on things and we will get to resolve proper issues. Until that day arrives, we will just remain here, avoidant of reality to a heartful degree. Better than to be straight directly hurt by reality because we seem to care too much about it. At least based on the judgment of other people, not that we truly give a single fuck, but we have the excuse that how other people perceive us is important for us. We do so many stupid things in private, but here we are, yeah, yeah. Now we care. Out of nowhere, we have one eye on us, so now we care about what other people thinks. Who knows, man? honesty is not so common. So yeah, that's where everything should start, with being a little bit more honest, if nothing else, with oneself. So whatever, it might get better. Who knows?